The New York Mets have a new closer, a new setup man. What exactly is Devin Williams' role for the New York Mets? Welcome in another edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Chris Schubert, Jack McKessie here with you to talk all things New York Mets baseball. Jack, we got ourselves a big splash from David Stearns and the New York Mets this offseason. We are talking the addition of Devin Williams on a 3-year contract. How are you, my friend?
Chris, I'm good. I feel good about this signing. Like, my immediate reaction is this is a good move. This made the New York Mets, the current state of the New York Mets, a better team. The bullpen has, at worst, a closer, at best, a very, very good setup man for Edwin Diaz, in addition to Brooks Raley and AJ Minter as a couple of seventh inning options. So I'm feeling good.
Yeah, a 3-year, $51 million deal for Devin Williams. And I did chuckle a little bit yesterday, seeing on social media everybody kind of freak out that the Mets signed Devin Williams, and they pointed to his 4.79 ERA as a reason to not sign Devin Williams, as if that's any way to look at a pitcher in 2025. Because as we do here on this pod, when you go under the hood, looks like the same guy, or at least 85 to 90% of the same guy that pitched to a 1.53 ERA in his last full season in 2023. All of the underlying metrics show that this guy can still throw it with the best of them. I have my favorite website this time of year, Baseball Savant, open, and I'm looking at the percentile ranks, and this is where I want to start, because I want to talk about what the Mets are getting in Devin Williams, and then we can have the debate on whether or not Edwin Diaz is coming back, the philosophy that David Stearns has. We'll get to that. But I look at last year, a pitcher that was still 86th percentile in expected ERA, 95th percentile in expected batting average, 97th percentile in chase percentage, 99th percentile in whiff percentage, 97th percentile in K percentage, 99th percentile extension, 85th percentile hard hit percentage. I mean, it was still an elite pitcher, and you look at the areas where he struggled. His fastball velocity was 46th percentile. He's never been a flamethrower. His average fastball velocity in 25 was 3. So he's basically throwing the same. Now, he was getting hit a little bit harder in 2025. That's why the average exit velo percentile is low. He also walked guys, 20th percentile in walk percentage, and got barreled up pretty well with 32nd percentile over there. But his walk percentage in 23, when he was great, was 8th percentile. Again, the things that Devin Williams struggled with last year, he struggled with in some regards in 2023 when he had a 1.53 ERA in 61 games and saved 36 games for the Milwaukee Brewers. And the run value on all of his pitches were good last year. A 7-run value on that changeup, a 2-run value on the 4-seam fastball in 23 when he had, again, those 36 saves, a 15-run value on the changeup, and a 5-run value on the 4-seam fastball. So yeah, those pitches were better, but this is not a case of a pitcher completely falling off the face of the earth. And I think the 4.79 ERA warps our perception of Devin Williams. He was great in August and September and in the postseason for this Yankees team. And if he ends up being the Mets closer for the next 3 seasons, the Mets have a very, very good arm in the 9th inning. So I love the move. I'm not worried about, he pitched poorly in New York at the beginning of the year for the Yankees. I think he put all that stuff behind him. And again, all the underlying metrics say the changeup's still great. That's the best pitch he has. He's still striking guys out. He's still missing bats. He needs to get a little better. Jack, I don't know if you thought about this, and I've done a lot of talking, so I'll cede my time here in just a second. But one of my first thoughts today in getting ready for the pod, Aroldis Chapman had a kind of revolution in his career last year in Boston. Justin Willard, who was over there directing the pitching organization for the Red Sox, is now the pitching coach for the Mets. So if there is room for Devin Williams to grow, they're bringing in a pitching coach that was at least had a seat at the table of Aroldis Chapman being the best closer in baseball last year.
That's a really good point, Chris. I didn't even really consider that, but that is a huge factor here with the Devin Williams signing. And another thing that I was kind of musing over is a casual Mets fan's relationship with Devin Williams and most recent experiences with Devin Williams are most recently hearing Yankees fans across town scream and shout that Devin Williams is a horrible closer, a terrible signing or a terrible move by Cashman to bring him in, a disaster of a closer. And before that, less recently, but maybe even more prescient in Mets fans' minds, Pete Alonso hitting a go-ahead home run against him in the third game of the Wild Card Series back in 2024. And so those are not strong impressions for Williams to leave. And if you look, again, as a casual fan at the surface numbers, you look at that 4.79 ERA and how much more bloated it is than any other ERA mark throughout his career. His previous high was as a rookie in 2019, 3.95. Again, that juiced balls year gives a little bit more context. Every other year, pretty much below 2. But the big thing that I want to point to, outside of all the baseball savant metrics that you pointed out really nicely, and I think that paints a really good picture of the picture that the Mets are getting here. Fangraphs has fielding independent pitching as a statistic for pitchers, and it kind of shows what a league average defense behind Williams might have looked like as far as his ERA. Over his career, that number has fluctuated between 2.01 to 2.7 is kind of the general range. His fielding independent pitching last year was 2.68. So that led to an expected ERA of 3.11, which is obviously significantly lower than 4.79. And I don't know if you know this, Chris, or our listeners, the Yankees defense, not a strong point for that team last season. And the Mets defense, from what we know and from the philosophy that we're expecting from the Marcus Semien move and what we're expecting throughout this offseason, the Mets defense is a point that they're going to build in this offseason. For 2026, making a defense better behind some of these ground ball pitchers is going to be a huge point of emphasis. That being the case, the baseball savant numbers being the case, Justin Willard coming in after a successful season working with Aroldis Chapman being the case, I am fully expecting a much more Milwaukee Brewers version of Devin Williams in 2026 than I am a New York Yankees version of this closing pitcher.
He's also thrown a slider and a cutter. He threw 2 cutters last year. He hasn't thrown a slider since 22, but I do wonder if there is a heart-to-heart conversation of, okay, the changeup took a little bit of a step back. Even I would admit the underlying metrics on the changeup are concerning. I don't want to say alarming, but that's where I think if you had to pinpoint what doomed Devin Williams' season, it was that changeup wasn't as nasty as it was in 23. Do we need to add a third pitch? And there's nothing the Mets love more than taking somebody and saying, hey, can you throw a sweeper? Can you throw a slider? Can you throw a sinker? Can we add something to this arsenal to now make you even more unpredictable? And so that, I think, will be a part of it as well for this Mets team. And yeah, you made a great point. This is why they bring in Marcus Semien. Like, these moves, one's a pitcher, one's a second baseman, but they're connected. The Mets understand that part of the reason why their pitching sort of just completely fell off the face of the earth in the second half last year was not helped by the fact that the defense behind them was below average. And it wasn't just Brandon Nimmo in left field. It wasn't just Jeff McNeil at second base. I mean, third base was a clown car at times. Mark Vientos did not have a good year. Pete, how often did we come on here doing series recaps and talk about a game in which Pete Alonso made a weird toss to first base? I mean, it felt like in the early part of the season, it was once a week at least we were talking about it. So the Mets understand that, yes, the pitcher's raw talent is important and their ability to get outs is important, but there's 9 guys on the field for a reason. You need the defense behind you, the defenders behind you, to also help out, and the Mets need to get better in that regard, and I think these two moves are connected. The Mets believe Devin Williams is a better pitcher than he was in 25. They believe he's more like the 23 or 22 versions of himself, and they also feel like he got terrible luck in the first half of the season with his defense there with the Yankees, and so they decide. Now, I will tell you, the thing that did shock me about this is I did not expect Devin Williams to get a 3-year deal. I did not expect him to get $51 million. Now, maybe I shouldn't be surprised that David Stearns was comfortable going to that level for Devin Williams because of the previous relationship the two probably had when Stearns was in Milwaukee. So maybe they felt comfortable. He knew the player better than some of the other options out there. But I was expecting Devin Williams after the 4.79 ERA season to get a 1-year prove-it deal someplace to rehab his value and then come back strong in 2026. Now, or I guess the 26 offseason, the 27 season. The Mets are telling you that they're buying the prove-it year now, and they believe in the future results as well. we could talk about the elephant in the room now, which is what is Devin Williams' role? And you're paying somebody nearly $15 million a season to potentially be your setup man, to maybe be your closer. And everybody who covers the New York Mets has said one thing very clearly. The Mets are not out on Edwin Diaz because they signed Devin Williams. Mm-hmm. And I tend to think this is the quintessential David Stearns move. He's not going to sit around and wait. He's going to make the team better. And if an opportunity to bring Edwin Diaz back presents itself, we know finances are not going to be an option. Steve Cohen just got his brand new casino approved, so the money's going to be rolling in across the street. They can sign Edwin Diaz and have Devin Williams be the setup man, and I'm sure that was a conversation they had with Devin when they signed him, that, hey, this is still on the table. So I don't think it rules it out. I think it's a very high-end insurance policy, and I think it is very much in line with the way Stearns likes to operate. There's also another wrinkle to this that is a very David Stearns move, and that is the number of years that he gave out on the contract. He only went to 3 years. Again, has not gone outside of Juan Soto more than 3 years on a single free agent. I will continue to say that until he proves me wrong on that, maintaining maximum flexibility across his roster. But Jack, I think your main concern with this, and we've been talking a lot offline about this move, you are concerned that this means Edwin Diaz is not coming back, and I tend to agree with you, but there is still that door and possibility open. It is the Mets. It is Steve Cohen. The money is endless. So Edwin Diaz is still, I guess, mathematically possible, but you add up what Edwin Diaz is supposed to get in free agency with what they just paid Devin Williams, and it is really hard for me to see the New York Mets under David Stearns giving two relievers $40 million a season.
I agree. And I think what interested me so much about the Devin Williams move is that, unlike many of the deals we've seen in recent years, they actually have some deferred money on this contract to limit the overall AAV of what Williams' deal is going to be. They're going to pay, I don't have a great thing ready for this, but they're paying about $10 million in cash while he's playing for the Mets a year rather than the $15 million. So the rest of the money will be deferred out down the road, probably long after he has hung up his cleats or at least played for the Mets. And that gives me some pause. Like, he's not making the 16.5-ish million a year that he would be making just based 51 divided by 3, whatever AAV. And I wonder if that's to give them a little more breathing room to make a move for Edwin Diaz, because, and this goes back to what you were saying about the 3-year deal thing, Chris, Diaz has said that he wants 5 years, $100 million plus, similar to the contract he received before. I don't think that's happening, mostly because of the length of the deal.
It may happen. A 5-year deal will not happen with the New York Mets.
With the Mets. Yeah, I should clarify. That will not happen with the Mets. I read an Athletic article. I sent it to you earlier this morning. The Mets are looking to really give Diaz a similar length contract. They want 3 years. Like that was literally the words that Will Salmon wrote in the article. Diaz wants 5. The Mets want something like 3. And I was like, of course they do. But I think the decision to defer some money in the Williams contract lines up well with a move that the Mets make to potentially sign Diaz to a shorter term, higher AAV contract, and kind of leverage his familiarity with New York, his space as the closer of the team. Like, Devin Williams has already come out, from what I've seen, and been told there's a chance that you're going to be the setup man. He is open to being the setup man in a world where the Mets bring back Diaz. So they're still, and as everyone has reported, in on a Diaz bid and in on bringing him back to the team. I think that they're lining up in a lot of financial ways and a lot of strategic ways to make that move happen. I just don't know if it happens because, like you said, if it goes to 5 years, if Diaz insists on having a longer contract, if he insists on getting this $100 million overall value, that's just not a move that David Stearns is going to make.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that an Athletic story said, hey, the Mets want to give Edwin Diaz a 3-year deal. Like, it's just it is a philosophical approach from David Stearns. I don't know how often I need to reiterate it. You're seeing that and it makes sense. It's kind of like rolling 3-year windows where Stearns wants to be able to give himself the flexibility and really give the team the flexibility to pivot. The last thing you want to do is sign everybody to 5, 6, 7-year deals. You're locking yourself into the core. And I hate to say it, but you find yourself in the exact window that the Mets just found themselves in with Starling Marte on a 4-year deal. deal. Brendan Nimmo on a 5-year deal. Technically 8, but they were in a couple years of that deal. Jeff McNeil on a multi-year contract. Lindor on a big deal. Soto on a big deal. You have all of these guys on at least 4-year deals, if not longer. And I'm not using this as an excuse for David Stearns because I think I've pointed out the flaws of the way they put this roster together last year. But when everybody's on at least a 4-year deal, it makes it very, very difficult to maneuver out and make changes when changes are required. And I think we would all agree change was required this offseason. Well, if you want that change, the best way to get that change is to have flexibility in your roster. And you're seeing that in the way Stearns is constructing these contracts that he is signing, not the ones that have been signed previously, but with the deals that he is making since taking over. It is very clear top line priority number one is flexibility for this roster moving forward. Now, I want to say something that I know you aren't going to agree with.
Okay.
If Edwin Diaz leaves and goes someplace else, I still think the Devin Williams deal is a great deal. I know that there are some in the space that say it's only a great deal if Edwin comes back and Devin Williams is the setup man to Edwin Diaz as the closer. To me, that is unfair to the player that Devin Williams is. Devin Williams is an all-star closer. He had a bad, not even full season, half season with the New York Yankees. That shouldn't be how we justify Devin Williams' entire career. He is still an elite closer that can provide that elite closer type stuff for the New York Mets. This deal is not only okay if Edwin Diaz comes back and he is a setup man. Devin Williams can be the closer for the New York Mets, and the Mets will have a great closer this season, and they need a great closer to go where they want to go, and Devin Williams does fit that bill. Do they have a super mega bullpen, or at least the makings of one with both? Yes. And are they a better bullpen with both guys? Yes. But it doesn't mean that Devin Williams being the ninth inning guy is a disaster and fire Stearns and how do they let Edwin Diaz walk? Like, that to me is not, that is an unfair criticism, in my opinion.
I'm with you. I think I'm trying to separate, like, logically, I think I have to agree with you that this is a great move for the Mets because of all the reasons you just outlined. He's an all-star closer. There shouldn't be reason to believe that because of maybe poor fielding behind him, bad luck, whatever you want to call it, early last year with the Yankees, that he's not that level of player anymore. Emotionally, and if I remove myself from the statistics, I think about, I just stop short of the deal being great for the Mets because of factors like you're locking in a 3-year deal on Devin Williams. And yeah, the Mets have the financial flexibility to back their way out of that if things go south late, whatever. But you do want an ability to switch things up faster within a year, within 2 years, like with Frankie Montas and how things shook out with him, especially with a guy who, and I don't want to feed this narrative because I don't think there's a ton of credence to it, but like a guy who hasn't proven himself in New York yet. And I worry that I think he is a very good closer. I think this is a very good signing, emotionally speaking. I just think I can only push it to great if the Mets aren't placing him immediately back into a closer role that he had ups and downs, to say the least, with the Yankees last year. I think we know Diaz is a known quantity as a New York Mets closer, and that makes me feel so much more comfortable having him come back and having Williams be a setup guy, a bridge to him, rather than I don't know this guy that well for playing for my team. I know he is a fantastic pitcher. I know he has a history of being one of the best closers in baseball, if not the best, in 2022, 2023. I just am not all the way there yet because I haven't seen it. I need him to show me before I can really become sold.
Fair. Edwin Diaz being back makes this bullpen better. I will concede that point. I wouldn't even argue it, right? Devin Williams being the 8th inning guy to Edwin Diaz in the 9th is the chef's kiss dream scenario, to go to the last episode that we did. But I just think if that doesn't happen, I don't want the immediate reaction from the fan base to be we have a crappy bullpen, right?
Yes,
I think that's unfair, right? I don't think that is a fair way to look at Devin Williams.
And I think logically, in my mind, I know that where we sit right now on December 2nd as we record this, the Mets do not have Edwin Diaz. They do not have another closer in that bullpen. Point blank period, Devin Williams makes the Mets a better team right now than they were 2 days ago.
Sure.
When free agency started.
Also, love the Mets finding the defer button on their
Me too.
contract screen.
Yeah.
Because if there's anybody, and I know they have to put this money in escrow and then it has to be, paid out down the road, but there's nobody who can maximize a dollar in baseball more than Steve Cohen as an investor. So he will make money on that contract, and that $5 million will be easy for him to pay out down the road to Devin Williams. But yeah, a move that I love, and I think, again, it signals to me this team is not going to be the same. It's just not going to be a complete run it back. And I think everything and anything is on the table moving forward. I was going. Do you have something on Devin Williams? I just have one thing
to add on that note.
Go ahead, because I was going to transition us to something else.
We talked about in our last episode. We recapped the Brandon Nimmo trade for Marcus Semien. We talked about what that meant for the defense, what that meant for the Mets roster construction going into this offseason. Obviously, we're still at the very beginning of it, and we have to kind of project how things are going to go. This Devin Williams move makes me even more convinced that Pete Alonso is not coming back to the New York Mets in 2026. Because, like you just said, this is a team that is going to be different from how it was in 2025. I think the Semien move was a clear sign of that because of the roster shakeups that are just going to have to happen at second base because of that move. And now with a different closer, with the willingness of Stearns to move early on someone else that wasn't named Edwin Diaz in the closer role, Diaz and Pete are the Mets' top two free agents right now. Diaz is now a potentially non-Met in 2026 because of this move. The Mets have his replacement.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just a preview that the Mets are going to be looking in the first base market pretty soon if they're not there already on guys whose names are not Pete Alonso.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point that the Mets are going to do a lot to change the makeup of this team. And I will concede something that I'm kind of fleshing out my full thoughts on it, but it's something that I've given a lot of thought to. The expectation around the New York Mets, because of Steve Cohen's presence and because David Stearns is, I think, one of the best general managers in baseball, is that they should always be in the mix to win a championship. Not to say that they're going to win it, but that they should always be in the mix. And I do think one of the pitfalls of that is the expectations are so high that it is incredibly easy to fall short of those expectations. I mean, ask the team across town. They constantly fall short of those expectations and have great seasons, and their fan base just absolutely throws riots. I am growing concerned that the Mets are going to make so much change to this team that it's almost unfeasible for them to have success right away. And what I mean by that is they're going to change so much of this team that it wouldn't surprise me if they won like 89, 90 games, made the playoffs, but were a quick exit because there's so much new and it takes time to gel. And that really, this is setting up for 27. If I'm making sense, right? Like, I think they're going to be competitive in 26, but I think that they are going to be a World Series contender in 26 with as much change as I think is coming, I don't know if that's a realistic expectation.
I think that's an interesting point. I think there is a lot of change, yes, but I think there's also a lot that they set up for in 25 to set up for 26. I think specifically about the starting rotation with McClain coming up, with Tong coming up, with Sproat coming up, with Peterson playing well in the first part of the year, being able to cut ties with Frankie Montas, and obviously Soto, Lindor, Francisco Alvarez at catcher. Like, there are still a lot of pieces of a core that I feel like the changes aren't going to be too detrimental. Although I do see your point. But at the end of the day, MLB has a 162 game season. I think that is enough time to, by October, have a new identity as a team, because I guess the direct counterpoint to what you're saying, 2025, they barely changed anything, and it resulted in a much worse result.
Fair.
2026, they are already changing a lot. Like, a lot has already changed just from the Nimmo trade.
Brand new coaching staff. Brand new coaching
staff.
Devin Williams in.
New closer. New second baseman.
We're maybe 25% through what I think this team's going to do this offseason.
Right. And so, when you don't change enough, you can end up having terrible results. Look at the Phillies as another example of that. They remained stagnant in large part because of the big contracts they gave out to the Bryce Harpers, the Trey Turners, the Kyle Schwarbers, Nick Castellanos, etc. And they're in a clear state of regression right now. The Mets in 2025 didn't change a whole lot. They lost Jose Iglesias, and that was kind of it. And it resulted in a late season collapse. Obviously, you don't want to change too much and have a completely different team where no one's familiar. But I think the Mets are trying to find the sweet spot right now, and they have some guys locked up to long-term contracts or are early in their careers where they are parts of a core. And right now, the pieces we're seeing are all complementary or supplementary to that identity. And I think that'll gel really well by July, August, so that when we get to October, they can have World Series aspirations. But I do see what you're saying.
This wouldn't be a Mets podcast if we didn't touch on what before Devin Williams was the hottest story around the New York Mets, and that was apparently Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto and Jeff McNeil. None of them like each other, and the entire team, entire clubhouse is an absolute mess. Listen, that was a joking way to set this up because that's what I think of the story, but I don't think we're doing our jobs here on the show if we don't at least talk about it. We didn't get a chance to. The last time we talked, Brendan Nimmo got traded, then there was Thanksgiving. You were traveling, so we didn't get a chance to address it. I think this is a total nothing burger. I've seen people try to break down the Phillies game in which reportedly there was an issue to try to find the play. To me, this has been addressed by the addition of Marcus Semien. Like, there's your answer. Like, if there was a problem, it's been addressed because Jeff McNeil's not going to play second base next season. He's just not. Marcus Semien's going to play. And so if Lindor is mad about the way a double play was turned, you got one of the best double play partners in the sport now to play second base. So if you want to use that as proof that there was something to this story, fine. To think that there is a problem between Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto, I just think you've lost your mind. Like, I just think you're out of your mind. With Lindor and McNeil, we know they've had a prior altercation. If you remember the rat raccoon situation, which only the Mets could have something like that happen to them. So that didn't surprise me, but that's been addressed. Like, it's over. Like, Marcus Semien's going to play second base next season for this team. So Soto and Lindor, there's a great Lindor quote that I forget who put it out on social media that, like, Lindor says, love him. He's my teammate. He does things a certain way. I do things a certain way. That's fine. We each need to prepare ourselves the way we need to prepare ourselves. And it's a non-story. Ridiculous that it was even thrown out there.
Yeah. I wouldn't even go so far as to say that the Semien trade was any indication of an issue between Lindor and McNeil. Like, I get the logic, I guess. But then if you think about it, the raccoon thing was in 2021. McNeil is still on the team in 2025-6. They played many, many games together since that incident. They went to an NLCS together since that incident. Maybe, things aren't perfect between every teammate, but, like, the Mets didn't make the Semien move because of an issue between Jeff McNeil and Francisco Lindor. They made it because it made the team better from a defensive perspective, from a offensive perspective, maybe, and it opens them up down the line to sign another outfielder, maybe.
Also, Francisco Lindor, the de facto captain of this team, I want him to hold his teammates accountable if they're doing something he doesn't think is up to the Mets standard. Somebody's got to do it, and he's the guy that's supposed to do it. So I don't have a problem with it at all. I will never forget Francisco Lindor straight-faced explaining the rat raccoon situation after the game. It is burned into my memory of him explaining that that's what they were arguing over, and only the Mets, like, legitimately only the New York Mets.
That, and then a week later when they won the next series and Lindor crashed McNeil's press conference to say it was a raccoon, and, like, hugged him. Like, I am not buying into any of the drama stuff. And with the Soto side of things, yeah, like, Lindor's the more vocal leader of the team. We knew this. Soto's more of a lead by example guy. We knew that. Like, maybe they don't have the most bubbly interactions every day in a 162 game season, but, like, they're both stars. They're both doing well with the Mets.
Also, like, the team wasn't playing well. I would have a bad attitude. Like, I would be annoyed and frustrated that we're not doing what we think we can do. That doesn't mean I hate my teammates. It means I'm upset that we're not winning. Winning cures all. If they went to the postseason, guarantee you the story doesn't get written. Guaranteed.
Oh,
doesn't come
chance.
Up. No chance this story gets written by the Post if they make the postseason.
Yeah.
But down season, they struggled down the stretch. September was a disaster. Soto's first season.
You waste a season with Soto. Like, listen, if I'm 26, Juan Soto is barely a year older than I am. If I were in the situation that he's in as one of the best baseball players in the world, I'm not. But if I were, and I missed the playoffs in my first year with the new team that I am staking the rest of my career on, essentially, I'd be pretty mad. And like, maybe that's just what someone caught wind of, is like Soto wasn't having a great time in the locker room when Lindor was going around checking on people. I don't know. I feel like I've wasted too much breath on this already.
Yeah, but
there's no issue.
I wanted to at least mention it because it was
Of course.
a very popular story in Mets Twitter land here over the couple of days that it was making the rounds. That is going to do it for us here.
They're going to be fine in 2026. That's my bold prediction for 2026. Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto are going to be fine.
Save that for the bold prediction show in February ahead of the season, please. Don't waste that great content here in December. That's going to do it for us here on another edition of the Bleav in Mets pod. We will have another episode for you this week. Now, Jack does not know what I'm about to say, but I already know what we're going to do, unless the Mets do something over the next couple days. I think we should break down the top free agents that we think the Mets should and could be going after and dedicate just nice 25, 30 minutes to one player. And I've got the great player for us to start with. So the next episode, we will be breaking down. I did not think the Mets were going to pursue this guy, the pursuit of Kyle Tucker. Break down Kyle Tucker on the next episode of the pod, because with the Brendan Nimmo trade, it becomes more of a possibility. And I don't think I've really done a deep dive into Kyle Tucker, what happened in Chicago last year, the player that he was in Houston. So we will bring a full deep dive to you on Kyle Tucker. Today is Tuesday when we're recording this. Thursday, you will get that episode in your podcast feed breaking down Kyle Tucker. If you're new, rate, review, subscribe to the show. You want to watch the program, you can do so over on YouTube. Jack McKessy, McKessy over there. Love the YouTube support that we've been seeing here over the last couple of episodes. We hope that you are enjoying what you're seeing. And again, we've got more of these episodes coming out here. And I think this player preview series should be a lot of fun. And we'll just do a couple of them. We're not going to do 40 of these. We'll just do a handful, half a dozen maybe, of the players that we're really excited for the Mets to go out there and sign in the off season. That will do it for us here on another edition of the show. We are back on Thursday talking Kyle Tucker, and if the Mets have a surprise for us, we will talk about that as well. As always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.